So today I'm going to talk about Mars, the astrological Mars. And all of you who do see my videos, you probably already know that I'm not only talking about how Mars shows up in the chart for, each of us. And yeah, I can't explain what that would look like if you were to ask me, hey, my Mars is in such and such. What is that like? What I am talking about is what Mars is and is not energetically. Okay, so the only way that I know how to do that is, you well know, is to tell stories, right? So, of course, Mars, people have it lodged in our heads, including me at one time, until I could study it a little bit better, that, Mars is angry and Mars is a warrior, and we are all taught to think of the warrior as this guy who's going to come and rearrange your okole if he doesn't like what you have to say, and that is not the truth. Okay, Mars is ruled by Aries and anciently ruled by Scorpio. So the last video I would make was about Pluto, which is ruled by Scorpio. So you could easily see the connection between those two planets and all of the mythology and the astrology, where Pluto is, like I said, the attic where you keep all this shit. And when you go unpack these boxes that have been packed for generations, part of you wants to fight that reality. The fight in us, the action in us is Mars. Okay. Yes, it's related to the sex drive, and yes, it's related to, winning and all these things that are Aries based. But to see an Aries in real life, okay, my boyfriend is in Aries, my dad was in Aries, I know Aries very well. And Aries is exactly like a warrior, because actual warriors, they don't go pick fights, and they would rather fight an honest opponent, right? And what I mean by that is, when it is that somebody is talking shit about you, or somebody punks you from behind, yeah, physically, they go push you from behind, that is not an honest fight. Aries, Mars, they don't want that. They want the true fight. They want to see and look. They want to look the demon in the eye and fight from there, because you cannot see behind you, right? But at the same time, I'm not talking about an Aries. I'm talking about Mars and the energy that is Mars. It is ready for the fight no matter what, but always bear in mind, it has to be an honest fight. They have to know, Mars has to know what they are facing in order to fight that fight effectively. So when you thinking about the last video about Pluto, and you've been fighting all these things all your life with people who you were told, versus being witness to and experiencing this sort of, I guess, unpacking and undoing of the past and lots of things that were not yours, right? And to find these things out through plutonic measures, through being surprised after you have repressed this feeling for so long, you don't know what to do. Well, of course you don't know what to do. Even though you might have thought about all these things from the past as being the truth, and you felt like you knew what you would do and say and how you would go about it, when it actually comes to you and you find out it's not a fair fight because it snuck up on you and you are not prepared for that fight. Mars and its energy, it doesn't know what to do. Okay, it has to kind of sit back and go, the fuck? Are you kidding me? Okay, so in that one thought, we are backing off this thing, not because, we're scared, not because we sissy lala about it, because we don't know this fight has just been brought to us and we're not prepared. Okay, so Mars likes to be prepared, not to fight, but yeah, to win. You ever knew a warrior? You ever knew, like, let's say, a Marine, an enlisted guy? You ever known a Marine, a soldier, any of these guys who can be thought of as a warrior? You ever known them not to be prepared for that fight? And then when somebody brings a fight to them quietly, they're not prepared, even though they're very prepared. Okay? In the same way, we can believe in our Martian identity, our Martian energy, that we are ready for any kind of fight. And then along comes this blindsiding energy that we have no idea about, that we have very limited time to prepare ourselves for. And unless we have some kind of, outside somebody who is as much the same warrior, been through the same things, fought the same fight, we're going to fight and, find ourselves blind to the quote unquote energy, to the fight, to the enemy. Okay. Mars is not going to seek out a fight, no matter who wants to think what. And depending on the sign that is in the chart for each of us, that will energize, that will give the signature of what our fight will look like, as long as we are not sneaked up on, as long as nobody sneaks up behind us and punks us from behind. Think about when somebody, betrays you and you don't know how to come back at that energy of betrayal. Mars does not like to be betrayed. Again, it likes a fair fight. It likes to know who its its enemies are. And so when we are faced with something that we have no idea about, that is, again, Pluto. Where the hell all this mess came from? We tell ourselves that. What am I going to do with this? A good example that is a bad example, but only because I'm the example, is, I went through a very long, long time being abused by my children's father. And, the generations that come before our own, we have no idea what the hell the next guys down are going to go through, right? We don't. All we know is what our experience is in that same kind of stuff. And then when we pass that on, to our own kids, and we unpack Pluto's attic full of shit, we hope, we pray, we wish for these children, this next generation from ours, will have understood what our fight was all about. It is not fair at all, whether you are a man or a woman, male or female. No, I'm not talking about no damn gender identification. I'm talking biologically. And you don't like that? That's okay. You don't have to. It is my example. You don't know how the hell you're supposed to react when somebody brings that kind of fight to you and you are not ready to, fight with it. You think you're ready. You think you know what you would do. And, those of us who've been through that, we don't want anybody to go through that ever at all. And when we find out somebody who we love and care about a great deal, specifically our children, specifically our partners, okay? Because we've been there, we know exactly what to do. We know exactly what to say. We are not those people. They're going to have a different way of addressing that betrayal. And that is going to be the Mars in them. When we experience betrayal, Mars is weakened. Okay, and so it is up to us to grab back some strength somehow, some way, in order to fortify Mars. And when I say fight, I don't mean, you're going out there to go rearrange somebody's okole. I mean, not against, but for. Okay, when you fight against something, that rarely comes out the way that you want it to come out. But when you are fighting for your own truth, your own self, all these things that are inherent in you, have always been, and lots of times we see ourselves as much younger versions of ourselves when these betrayals happen. And really, as a former life coach, I want you folks to think about how old you are in that mind movie, because that is the first time you will experience feeling like you do. The first time you felt punked, the first time you experienced what felt like betrayal to you by anybody who you loved a whole lot. And I'm talking little kid kind, okay? In my case, when I was told that I could trust all the adults in my life to have my best interest at heart, I do not, now I can, but back then a child cannot differentiate between physical safety as love versus emotional safety being a little more important than that. Because when you get to be my age, 53, you have a little bit of an issue without some kind of proof that you're not going to be betrayed by somebody who you became vulnerable with. And as luck would have it for me, the people who I am vulnerable with know already what my fight for myself, rather than against anybody else, has always been, which is, I just need to come back from the furthest corner of hell with my head held high, walking through hell to get through that hell. But the only way you can get through that is if you have this Mars energy, this warrior spirit in you still alive, which it never dies unless, and I'm just going to say it doesn't die unless you let it die. Okay? Which is really sad, because a lot of people just let it die because they're convinced that who they are as this fighter, not against anybody else but for themselves, is wrong. You got to be nice to people at all costs. Well, nobody explains to anybody what that actually means. And I know that my generation is filled with people pleasers. And we don't even realize that that's what this is. The Mars in us has been betrayed by these people who love us, but they know as much as we do, are trusting their own parents, their own adults, okay? So when I tell people, there is this version of you that is still alive in your head, and you're the only one who knows how old that version of you is, and that version is crying. It feels betrayed. It feels like that nobody loves them. That betrayal scene, okay, if you go broaden that out, right, you will realize how old you were at that time. Okay, and this is for anything. Good, bad, whatever. But right now we're talking about betrayal and Mars. Only you know how old that person is there. All right. And I know that a lot of people, yes, in my generation, never had kids. And it is because that kid is telling them, you know better. Okay. And the only way that they could have it, that this generational bullshit never goes past them, is by not having children. Good idea. Okay. Because a lot of people my age did not need to have children. Why? Because they never raised up that kid who lives inside their head, who goes through their life feeling so betrayed, not realizing that you can go inside that scene as you, yourself, at this age now, and parent that child. And if you don't have kids, you can be, uncle, auntie, big cousin, big sister, whatever, and go tell that part of you. I know that you were betrayed sometimes even by me, because I won't go believe all these guys and what they told me. I am here for you. Yeah, I get choked up when I think about that, because I had to do that a lot. I had to coach me a lot. because there's a lot of damage back there that was placed there by very damaged people. And damaged people who, some of them, if they're still alive, have no idea how damaged they are. Because why? They still are believing and living and honoring the expectations and words of dead people. You don't have to do that. You can go inside that scene in your head and fight that Martian fight for you, for little, little you. I know it sounds insane, but it's true. I'm not going to have anybody, roll the thing backwards, go backwards in your mind, play that movie backwards and find out when a scene stops. The hell with that. That takes too much time. Actual healing from betrayal, because it comes from somebody else's fucked up Mars that, was walking around the planet with their weapon drawn at all times, eyes shut, only the words of their ancestors and their ancestors' ancestors, as was told by the generation before them. This is what you got to do, and this is how you got to do it, and do not stray from what I tell you. Which, when, the next generation, again, me, my children's father tried to do that with them, and it didn't work. I lived through what messes my own ancestors, my own, previous people, my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, kupuna, all the way back, tutu people, all that. And yeah, to this day, you've heard me mention my auntie, my uncle, my this, my that. Those are the scenes in my head sometimes when I'm sitting in here in the dark, late at night, the cat curled up on my feet, the dog on my pillow, and me in tears, and wondering, how did I believe all these people and their bullshit? There's the thing. We are not ever taught, which to me is the greatest betrayal. In another video with another planet, not long from now, that is the fight, that is the Martian warrior energy in us brought to life. Okay, it doesn't matter the sign it's in. I'll get to that another time. What I am addressing right now is the energy. People are so convinced that Mars energy is just, and I'm just going to be very crude, cock out, while you rock out. I heard that by somebody a long time ago. And it's only true, I suppose, if you're an actual rock musician on a stage in front of all these people who are fanning you. I am way too old for that. I enjoy my rock music, but when I say that, that is blindly living the Martian energy in your life, in your, in your chart. How it comes out, that's, that's the sign that it's in, as well as Mercury. What you are fighting, what I just said, last video was Pluto, right? But Mars energy is warrior. And people mistake the warrior for going out there and defending things and people, which is okay. But you will recognize which ones have lived through that kind of betrayal and what they feel is worth fighting for by the causes they take up and the ones that they stick to. Okay, I got an online friend who has a podcast. I'm just going to shout him out right now. A Man Apart podcast. I don't, he went through some serious shit. And he, you can go listen to that guy's stuff. Go look it up. But from the things he has told me and other people, the people who he defends are the same kind of people who he used to be and nobody defended him. So, yeah, the people I'm going to defend are the very ones who I love, I know, I can relate to their fight that they don't know what they're fighting with, not about, not for. Because again, I'm going to repeat myself, Mars is not there. That energy is not there for us to fight against anything. It's there for us to fight for things that we believe in and that are the causes that are true to our experience, okay? Like, I will always get the back of somebody who's being abused. Why? That's my experience, not just with this shithead kid's father of mine, who is now dead, thank God, but also the past that I was raised up by these people whose ideals and narratives in their heads, even to this day, some of them, needed to live on. And the only way that you do that is you fight for that cause and you instill it in the next generation. Well, when these people went and tried to instill that into my own children, oh, I had an issue with it. And there came Pluto telling me, hey, Roxanne, wake the hell up. In my mom's voice, Mapuana, you better wake up right now. Look this mess. And I sure did. And all three of those kids would tell you, you can mess with anything with Mamara. You just don't mess with us because she would come unglued. Forget Mama Bear. We're talking Orca. I'm a Pisces. So, when you are talking about Mars in your chart, you're not talking about your sex drive only. You're not talking about how you get angry or what area of life you're going to get angry or anything like that. You are talking about your response to betrayal on, in one part. But you're also talking about being able to come to the forefront, even if it's just in that mind movie of you as a child, and now you walk into that scene and you champion that kid. You raise hell for that child who you were in that visualization, and you go tell that baby, I'm your parent now, or I am your big brother now, or I'm your auntie, you go tell them, because you cannot save anybody else. You can't tell anybody how to save themselves. If you don't fix that, betrayal, because our first betrayal is first, our parents, and then as time goes on, we feel like we're betraying ourselves. That's not a mistake that you feel like that. That is, Martian boot camp. So, yeah, go follow me on Instagram. All that kind. You want to know something, you can send me an email. Might take me a day or two to get back to you, but I will get back to you. And yeah, go fight the good fight, Martians. Aloha.